Horizon Senior and Youth Cooking class, and today we have a little surprise for you. We're going to be making a nice chicken with a garlic sauce that we've made, and also some apple pie today. So you're in for a little treat, so come on down and let's get cooking. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and plate our rice our chicken's already slow cooking in the slow cooker, so now we're going to go ahead with the rice because it takes 20 minutes. So basically I'm just doing enough for my little 8 pieces of chicken. So I've got 1 cup of rice that's uncooked. This is just a long grain rice, and I don't rinse my rice, not this one. And I'm gonna pour in 2 cups of water, and I'm just gonna bring that to a boil. And once that gets boiling, I'm adding my rice with a little bit of salt. I'm gonna turn it right down to low and simmer it for 15 minutes. And then voila, you're gonna have rice with your dinner. So I'm just gonna bring this up to a boil. So I'm gonna put the lid on it for now, and we'll get back to you in a minute. Okay, so now you can see we have a nice boil. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this down to low now. And I'm gonna add my rice. I'm just gonna give it one little stir, avoid all the lumps, and then there you have it. It's gonna sit on there for about 15 minutes on low. And do not be tempted to take the lid off while you're cooking it, because you'll let out all that steam, and that's what we want. We want the steam to cook the rice. In 15 minutes, we'll take it off the heat and let it sit for the next 5 minutes, and then we're ready to serve. Okay, so right now I'm at my home kitchen and I'm just getting a head start on our chicken dish tonight. And this is a slow cooker recipe, so I've already made the sauce, which I gave you the recipe for. Here's your chicken thighs that are boneless and skinless. And here's our crock pot. So you got a busy day ahead of you. Just give it a spray. You're gonna get dinner prepped and ready before you go to work, which is 5 minutes. And then you're off for the day. Everything cooks. You come home, we'll show you later the finished product. I'm just gonna go ahead and place my chicken. It's been washed. Just gonna spray that and lay it down so it doesn't stick. All this chicken's just gonna go right in the bottom. Then we're gonna pour our sauce right over top. Then you're gonna turn it on low, and you're just gonna let it sit for about 5 to 6 hours. And then if you wanna thicken this later, you can, or you can just leave it as a nice sauce that it is. Now we're gonna go ahead and pour the nice sauce right over top of all that chicken. Let's make sure it's all covered. Perfect. Just gonna wash my hands. And then we're just going to turn it on low. Cover it. And when you come home from work, you just make some rice for 20 minutes and pour it over a bed of rice with your nice vegetables, and voila, dinner is served. That's it. See you in about 6 hours. All right, so now we're going to go on to making our apple pie. And as you can see, I've already got these cut up and ready for us, and they are sitting in some cold water with some lemon. Squeeze some fresh lemon in there just to help it not to turn brown and oxidize. So right now I'm going to show you how I cut my apples, and just an easy way to do it is you can use a peeler, but I use my knife. I kind of just follow along the skin, nice and thin cuts. You don't want to take all your apple away. And you'll notice that I have my scale next to me. I like to weigh out my ingredients for my apple pies, but a lot of people don't have a scale at home, so you don't have to. It's just something that I prefer doing when I bake. And usually it takes about 8 apples to make this pie recipe. And if you're weighing it, these weigh about 900 grams, all these apples cut up. And that's prior to peeling and coring, of course. So this little cool tool I use makes our life a lot easier. The kids love it for snacks. It's just an apple cutter, and voila. And then what I do, I take the core out, and it's so easy. I don't want these big chunks in my pie, so I just like to take my knife and just cut them that size. Nice 1/4 inch thickness. And then when I cook these down on the stove, I cook them just till they're a little bit soft, and it reduces the cooking time in the oven half the time. So normally a pie takes 40 minutes in the oven. These ones are going to take 20. And there you have it. You can use them as a snack, apple pie, and that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to go ahead and drain these and cook them off, and add all our beautiful spices, and then get this pie going. So now what I like to do with my pies or my apples once they're chopped and ready to go, I like to cook them in a little bit of butter. And once again, I've already weighed out all my ingredients, so you don't have to worry about that. So I'll let the butter melt, and then once this butter is melted, I'm gonna cook off the apples in this butter and add the sugar. And what's gonna happen is the sugar is gonna draw out the natural water from the apples, and it's gonna become nice and juicy. And then once that's about half cooked, then I'm gonna finish off with some more butter and some spices and some lemon juice. And then once those apples are cooled off, they're ready to go into our pie dough. So this is just gonna take about 10-15 minutes, but we're gonna get the apples in here. And we're just gonna slowly get those, I like to call nice and happy. So that's, like I said, it's gonna take about 10 minutes. And I'm gonna go ahead now and just, ow, that was hot. Got that, got my arm. Forgot my rice is cooking next to me. And there we go. So you can hear it kind of sizzling in here. We're just gonna stir these apples around. And an important thing I like to say about apples is when it comes to apple pies, my favorite is the Granny Smith or the Mutsu. Those ones are good for baking. They got that tardiness and that nice crunch to them, and they don't kind of mush up when you're baking them, so they kind of hold their texture in their pie, so it looks pretty when you go to cut it and it's not too mushy. So those are kind of a couple of my favorites. But I got a couple different ones in here, and we're just gonna cook these down for about maybe, 10 minutes. You'll see in about 10 minutes when I come back, I'll show you how the sugars have brought out all those natural juices from the apple. Okay, so now we're back to our apples, and you can see already that the juices are just coming right out of these apples, and that's what we want. This is gonna be some great flavor when we go season it and thicken it. And we're gonna do that in about 2 more minutes. We're gonna thicken this up with a slurry, I like to call it, or a waxy maize, sorry. And we're gonna make this a nice thickened apple, it's like apple sauce almost. And we're gonna do that in 1 minute. So now I've made my slurry, so it's just cornstarch and some water, cold water. And as you can see, the juices are just bubbling here. So we're gonna go ahead and just add this slurry now. And this is gonna just thicken right up. And we're gonna cook it just for about a minute, just till it's nice and thickened, and you'll see that it'll thicken right up. It's like magic. So we just wanna cook the starches out of that and get it nice and thick. And then we're gonna go ahead and add the rest of our seasonings and toppings. So my apples are pretty much cooked. You can see that these are gonna be clear juices now, and that's all that takes. I'm gonna turn my heat right to low, and I'm now gonna go ahead and add my spices and the rest of my ingredients. So I'm gonna cook off with the rest of the sugar, and then I'm gonna add some of this nice lemon juice. That's about a half a lemon in there. And I'm gonna go ahead with my little bit of butter and spices. So I've got 3 different spices going on. I've got cinnamon, an allspice, some nutmeg, just for that nice flavor. And you don't want to overspice your apple pie, because you want to taste the apples, but you want you want to make sure that you taste your spice too, but you don't want to overpower your apples. So that's why I like to measure my apple pie. Some people don't. They just kind of add a little pinch here and a pinch there, and that's fine. But how I do it is just like this. So once this is cooled off, we're gonna go ahead and assemble it in our pie dough. And then I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how to actually make a pie dough while this is cooling off. And there you have your pie dough. So you can actually taste it at this point and see if you need to adjust your seasoning, but this is all measured out, and I've been doing it forever, so I already know it's good. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how to put together a pie dough. While everything is cooking and simmering here, this is how simple it is. And the bag has there's so many recipes, but this bag here already has a recipe simple. I'm using their recipe just to show you. I do a different recipe. There's so many different recipes I use, but this one's very simple, even for you to do at home. So 2½ cups of flour, about a ½ cup of ice water. I've already have my ice cube in there melting. I've already dissolved my little bit of salt in there. I have weighed out the butter and the vegetable shortening. And this is what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna cut this up, add it to here, and I'm gonna show you how we do this. So I'm gonna go ahead and just cube this butter and shortening together. And we're gonna use my handy dandy cutter. We're gonna add that right into the flour. And now you're just gonna use your cutter and go ahead and just smash that in there. And we're looking for a pea-size shape of the flour by the time we're done all this. just so it's nice and incorporated throughout. You don't want too big of chunks. You want to make sure that you actually have a nice even size of flour to your fat. And we'll get this going. And the important thing about making your pie dough is you don't want to, once we add the water, you don't want to over mix it. At this point, it's not really doing anything to it. We're still working on getting this butter cut into this, or this fat cut into the flour. So we're almost there. It's a good arm workout. You don't have to go to the gym to get a membership. You just make pie, make dough. And this dough goes really good with a meat pie if you wanted to. You can make quiche out of this pie dough. So this is a really cool recipe and it's very simple. Everybody's happy and got a little bit incorporated. So I'm gonna go ahead now and add our ice cold water with the salt that's already been dissolved. I'm gonna do half at first, kind of just give it a swirl. I'm not mixing, I'm just kind of fluffing it around with my cutter. Almost got a ball formed. And the rest of it. So now, this is where you don't want to over mix your dough. So everything's incorporated right now, so we're just going to switch this over to my board. You don't even need to lightly flour it, it's fine. Okay, so now I'm just going to kind of work this before I dump it over. And very gently, you just want to kind of fold just to finish mixing it up. You don't want to over mix this, so just be gentle with it. It doesn't look like we have enough water, but believe me, there's enough fat in here. We don't need to add no more. So I'm gonna go ahead now and flip it over to my board. And I'm just gonna kind of work this dough together. And this is why we like to relax our dough, because we just beat it up. So we just need them to relax, because if you go to cook it now, it's gonna be too tough and it's not gonna cook properly. It's just gonna shrink up to nothing. So we just wanna relax this for a couple hours in the fridge once we've got this dough formed. So there you have a whole pie dough for a 9-inch pie pan completed right here. And there you have it. And that was that. Telling you, it was that easy to make a pie dough. Everybody says, oh, I don't know how to make a pie dough. Now you do. So I just take my knife, or you can use your bench scraper, not cutting my thing, and just make 2 even, pieces. And then what you want to do is just form a ball, make a disc, wrap it in saran wrap, and then we're going to let these cool off in the fridge and rest. If you want to, at this point, you can freeze these. We don't need these today because I've already made the dough. So I'm going to go ahead and freeze these for another time. And we're just going to saran wrap those and put them in the freezer. Make sure you label it so you know the date and use it within 3 to 6 months. All right, so now we're going to go on to do our dough, make our pie dough. I've already made some ahead of time, because you do want to rest your dough for at least a couple hours once you make it, so it doesn't form gluten. You don't want it too tough. So I've already made these ahead of time. So I have 2 discs that I'm going to go ahead now, and I got my surface is a little bit floured, and I'm just going to go ahead and just work this dough because it is cold. And I'm going to just get it nice and happy here, and then we're going to go ahead and roll it out. This will be our base. So one recipe makes 2, a top and a bottom for your dough. So I just takes this extra flour, get my rolling pin dusted. I'm going to go ahead and roll. And when you're rolling, you don't want to squish it too much. You just want the rolling pin to do the work, but put a little bit of muscle into it. Don't kill it. And then we're going to go this way. And I'm just going to go this way. And I've used butter and Crisco in my dough. And I like to kind of just flip it around so it doesn't stick too much. You don't want it to stick to your surface and then you can't peel off your dough. And I like to turn them. I'm going to knock this over. We're almost there. I'm looking for almost a little bit bigger than this pie dish. So this is like a 9-inch pie dish that I'm using right now. I think this might be perfect size for our dough. Let's see. I like to leave a little bit hanging over because I am going to actually cut that. So this is perfect size. I'm just going to fold this dough gently just to match the bowl or the dish that it's in. You don't want to rip your dough. And if you do rip it, don't panic. You can always get a little bit of water and kind of glue it back together. And there you have the top layer. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to keep all this excess because I like to do something in the end once the pie goes in here or the apples go in here. I'm gonna roll up my top part and then I'm gonna just cut a little bit around and we'll show you that later. But for now, this is the base of our pie. And how easy was that? A little bit of practice and patience, and there's your pie dough. All right, so now we're gonna just finish up our second piece of our pie dough that's already been rested. And I'm just gonna work it here a little bit. And then this is our topping for when we put the pie filling into our dough that's already in our pan or dish. I like using glass, but if you have a stainless steel or whatever works for you, the dollar store has the tin pans that are easy for you to make pies. You can use those as well. I just like the glass because it kind of shows off a little. I forgot to dust my lid. A little bit. Same idea. We want to make sure that the pie dough is kind of going to cover this, so we want to make sure it's a little bigger than the 9 inches that it is. You can see that the fat is just marbling in the dough, and that's what you want to see. That's what makes it nice and flaky when it's cooking. And I like this recipe because it only takes 20 minutes in the oven. At about 425, we're going to cook this pie, and then you're going to have a beautiful pie in 20 minutes versus cooking it for 40 minutes. I'm just going to add a little bit more flour here. And you want to make sure that when you're rolling, you have that nice, almost 1/8 of an inch thickness. You don't want it too thick because it'll never cook proper. So you just want to make sure that your dough is nice and uniform. And you could do that even by feeling it. You can say, okay, that's how I like to do it. It's like, okay, perfect. Everybody's happy all the way around. And you want to make sure that it kind of fits over top of your dough. You could use your hands, so that's a good size, so I like that. If you're not comfortable with grabbing it with your hands, some people like to just kind of take their rolling pin and just roll it loosely, and then you can kind of lift it and go right over top of your, like that. Pretend our toppings are in there. But this is a pretty good dough. It's easy to handle. So once your apples have cooled off, we're gonna go ahead now, and this will fill this whole pie dough. And as you can see, this is a perfect recipe for 1 9-inch pie. Mine is a little bit still hot because we're kind of rushing it. So spread that around. I'm gonna go ahead now and put on my top piece. And then I'll show you how I like to do my pie dough. So what I like to do is take my edges and kind of fold them. Just so you're kind of locking in the top and the bottom. I just fold them all around. This is gonna, so that the juices don't come flying out. Okay, and then what I do now is I take it and I just kind of take my index fingers and my thumb and I just kind of pinch and go all the way around my pie. So you're getting that nice, cute effect. You always wonder, people always wonder, how did you get that edge like that? There's different edging you can do. You can use a fork to do this. I just like to use my fingers. And oh, this guy slipped down a little. That's okay. Squeeze him. This is a deep dish, so he's kind of slipping. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is your pie, your creation. All the labor and the love that went into this, everybody's gonna be happy. So there, my edging is all done. It's all sealed. And now I like to take my knife and I like to do the, just so the steam can escape while it's baking, just give it a little stab up top, down there. This is like a little cute design you can do. You can be as creative as you want when it comes to your toppings. Just so that the steam will escape. And then I don't have my egg with me today, but just give a light egg wash, and then you could put some sugar if you wanted to over top of this, but I'm just gonna put a little bit of water and milk because I have a little bit of milk in here. And then we're gonna go ahead and bake this for 20-25 minutes. All right, so after 20 minutes, our pot of rice is now cooked. You can see all that steam has cooked it perfectly. And I never met a rice that didn't cook perfectly. So I'm gonna go ahead and just take my bowl. I'm just gonna fill that in there. I'm just gonna go ahead and plate this. Oh, nope, I wanted you in. Sorry. It's better with a scooper with a handle. I'm gonna go ahead now and plate our chicken and put sauce all around it. Chicken is cooked. I did nothing to this. This thing did all the work. Look how gorgeous that is. Now at this point, if you don't like it watery like it is right now, you can thicken it up. Same idea, cornstarch and a little bit of cold water and bring this to a boil and then let it just thicken up just slightly. And then you'll have a nice glaze that you can, but I like the sauce. So I'm gonna go ahead now and just plate this right over top of our rice. And if you made some nice broccoli, you can go ahead and just serve that, or any kind of vegetable. Anything green would be pretty with this. And just go ahead and just put your sauce right over top. And I'm telling you, the family will not be disappointed. And after a long day of work or at school, dinner is served. I like to garnish it with some toasted sesame seeds. This is just some leftover poppy seeds and stuff from our sushi class. So there you have it. You can also garnish it with some nice green onions, cut them nice sliced, and just kind of garnish that on top as well for a pretty presentation. And there you have garlic chicken thighs with your rice. Enjoy. And so there you have our pie fresh out of the oven. I've already went ahead and sliced it for you. I cut it a little bit too early, but as you can see, you'll see all your insides are beautifully and seasoned nicely. And I'm sure it tastes delicious with a nice scoop of ice cream on the side. And there you have dessert served. So thank you again for tuning in today to our class of our garlic chicken and our apple pie. Hope you enjoyed. Happy cooking.